On the previous Two on the Aisle, we covered Footloose at the Muni. Today we are covering Footloose again, this time at Hawthorne Players. When we last reviewed the same show on consecutive episodes, Bob and I split the assignments. This time I wanted to do both reviews because I was curious to see if my newfound appreciation of Footloose would survive another viewing so soon. I am happy to report that it did, and I'm happy I can borrow from my plot summary from the other review. The musical from 1998 is based on the film of the same name that came out 14 years earlier. The stars were Kevin Bacon and John Lithgow. Dean Pitchford and Walter Bobby adapted Pitchford's original screenplay for the stage. The lyrics and music are mainly by Pitchford and Tom Snow respectively, with additional music by Eric Carmen, Sammy Hagar, Kenny Loggins, and Jim Steinman. The central character is Wren McCormick, a high school student from Chicago who loves dancing. Wren's father has just abandoned the family, forcing Wren and his mother to move to a small town called Beaumont, 10 hours from Chicago by car, where they have been offered a place to stay by Wren's aunt and uncle. If adjusting to a new place, a new school, and a new crowd weren't enough, Wren has to cope with the town's ban on dancing. The town's minister, Reverend Moore, is behind the ban, and he's a man of tremendous influence, except in his own family. His teenage daughter, Ariel, is quite the rebel. She sneaks out at night to meet up with an abusive boyfriend and eventually takes a shine to Wren. At its heart, this story is about a son who has lost a father and a father who has lost a son. These losses put Wren and the Reverend in conflict, but eventually become the basis for reconciliation. The Hawthorne production had admirable performers in both roles. Wren is a fun-loving, outgoing young man with a quick wit that can charm or alarm depending on who the target is. Valiente Waltz captured all these traits, as well as the pain and uncertainty that beset Wren because of the loss of his father. Waltz is an accomplished singer and dancer, as befits someone whose last name is Dance. In his first appearance as Reverend Moore, Ken Clark exuded the warmth and confidence of a man fully in his element, which he was. The Reverend was preaching in his church. Clark was equally adept at showing the cracks in this facade when the Reverend was out of his element, for example, when he was dealing with his headstrong daughter. Waltz and Clark were completely convincing in the climactic scene in which Wren touches the Reverend's heart by speaking from his own. Director Larry Quiggins drew thoughtfully delineated characterizations from the supporting cast, including A.J. Sorrell as the Reverend's daughter Ariel, Teresa Peters-Nigas as his wife Phi, Jennifer Clody as Wren's mother Ethel, Logan Wilmore as Ariel's boyfriend Chuck, and Allie Morgan and Rick Paget as Wren's aunt and uncle. I especially like the delightful chemistry between Duncan Phillips as Wren's sweet but shy pal Willard and Eleanor Marsh as Rusty, the effervescent gal who's sweet on Willard. The musical numbers popped thanks to performers, music director Dominic Dottie Windsor, pit director David Williams, and choreographers Devin Elizabeth Sophia and Stephanie Kluba. Larry Quiggins designed the set, Carl Wendland designed the lighting, Eric Wendland designed the sound, and Stacy Michelle Harris was the costumer. Thanks to Hawthorne, I can now say that my newfound appreciation of Footloose has stood the test of time.
Well, I'm afraid I don't have as much appreciation for it even after the second time. I don't know, it seems dated or something. It just doesn't, the story doesn't, I don't care for it. Let's put it that way. But there's some good music. Why don't we listen to it?